Good evening and welcome to Civonix. Tonight, we are examining a crisis that is quietly unfolding in California, but carries serious consequences for the entire United States. This is not a partisan talking point or a theoretical policy debate. This is a real-world breakdown of the trucking industry in the nation's most important supply chain hub. And according to trucking operators, port officials, and logistics analysts, the cause is not a lack of demand, but a growing pile of state policies that have made it increasingly difficult for trucks to keep America moving. California is not just another state in the logistics network. It is the front door of the American economy. Nearly 40% of all imported goods entering the United States arrive through California ports, primarily Los Angeles and Long Beach. From there, trucks distribute everything Americans use daily, including food, medicine, clothing, building materials, electronics, and fuel. When trucks stop moving in California, the effects do not stay local. They spread nationwide. Over the past several years, thousands of independent truckers have exited the California market. Some shut down entirely. Others relocated to states like Texas, Arizona, and Nevada. Industry data shows a steady decline in the number of registered owner-operators serving California ports. This decline is happening even as demand for trucking remains high. That contradiction is the key warning sign. The problem is not work availability. The problem is policy pressure. At the center of the controversy is Assembly Bill 5, known as AB 5. Passed in 2019, AB 5 redefined who qualifies as an independent contractor in California. While the law was marketed as worker protection legislation, its impact on trucking has been severe. Most port truckers historically operated as independent owner-operators. They owned their trucks, managed their schedules, and contracted directly with shippers. AB 5 effectively eliminated that model by forcing companies to classify many independent truckers as employees. Supporters of AB 5 argued this would improve wages, benefits, and stability. But for trucking, the outcome has been very different. Many trucking companies refused to convert contractors into employees due to the costs and liabilities involved. At the same time, independent truckers were unable to legally continue operating under their existing business model. The result was mass exit. Thousands of truckers either parked their rigs or left California entirely. Court challenges temporarily delayed enforcement, but in 2024, the Supreme Court declined to block AB 5, paving the way for full enforcement at the ports. Almost immediately, trucking capacity tightened. Port congestion increased, turnaround times grew longer, and the trucking workforce shrank further. But AB 5 is only part of the story. California environmental mandates have added another heavy burden. The state's Advanced Clean Fleets regulation requires trucking companies to transition to zero-emission vehicles on an aggressive timeline. Beginning in the mid-2020s, many fleets must begin purchasing electric trucks, and by the 2030s, diesel vehicles are phased out entirely for port operations. Electric trucks are far more expensive than diesel models, often costing 2 to 3 times as much. Charging infrastructure is limited, unreliable, and often unavailable outside major urban corridors. Charging times reduce productivity, and grid capacity is already strained. For independent truckers and small fleets, the transition is financially impossible. Many truckers interviewed describe a simple reality. Their trucks are paid off, their businesses are profitable, they serve customers efficiently, but they cannot afford a $300,000 electric truck, nor can they risk downtime caused by limited charging access. As one operator put it, this is not a transition, it is an eviction. The combined effect of AB 5 and environmental mandates is a shrinking trucking workforce serving the ports. Fewer trucks means slower cargo movement. Containers stack up. Ships wait longer to unload. Importers face delays. Transportation costs rise. Those costs are passed on to consumers. Retailers have already adjusted by diverting shipments away from California ports. Cargo is increasingly routed through Texas, Florida, and Gulf Coast ports. Some imports even enter through Mexico and Canada. While this may keep shelves stocked, it comes at a cost. Longer transport routes increase fuel use, increase emissions, and increase prices. Ironically, policies intended to reduce emissions may be increasing them. Goods rerouted to distant ports still travel by truck, only across longer distances. California loses port revenue, trucking jobs, and tax income, while global emissions rise. Governor Newsom has defended the policies, arguing that California must lead on climate action and worker protection. His administration administration says the transition will create cleaner jobs and long-term economic sustainability. State officials emphasize investment in charging infrastructure and workforce development programs, but the transition timeline does not align with market realities. Infrastructure is years behind, costs remain prohibitive, and many truckers say they will not survive long enough to benefit from promised future improvements. The national implications are serious. Trucking is the backbone of American commerce. When capacity shrinks, prices rise, and reliability falls. Supply chain instability feeds inflation, disrupts manufacturing, and weakens economic resilience. At a time when Americans are already struggling with high living costs, additional pressure on transportation only makes matters worse. There is also a legal and constitutional dimension. Interstate commerce has traditionally been regulated at the federal level. When one state imposes rules that effectively control national logistics flows, it raises serious questions. Trucking associations are urging Congress to intervene and establish clear federal standards to prevent a patchwork of state regulations that fragment the national supply chain. Several lawsuits are ongoing. Industry groups argue that California policies violate federal law by interfering with interstate commerce. They warn that if California sets the precedent, other states may follow, creating a nationwide capacity crisis. For workers, the situation is deeply personal. Many truckers are immigrants, veterans, and small business owners who invested their life savings into their rigs. They are not anti-regulation. They want fair rules and clean air, but they argue that policy must be practical. A system that eliminates small operators in favor of large corporate fleets reduces competition and concentrates power. Port officials privately acknowledge the strain. While public statements emphasize progress, internal data shows declining truck availability and rising dwell times. Logistics experts warn that California is testing the limits of how much regulation the supply chain can absorb before it breaks. This is not a hypothetical future problem. It is happening now. Every delayed shipment, every rerouted container, every truck that leaves the state quietly reshapes how goods move across America. The question facing California leadership is whether adjustments will be made. Will timelines be extended? Will exemptions be expanded? Will independent operators be given a viable path forward? Or will the state double down on policies regardless of economic fallout? For the rest of the country, the question is equally urgent. How much supply chain disruption can the economy absorb, and who ultimately pays the price? This is not just a California story. It is a national warning about what happens when policy ambition collides with operational reality. Trucks do not move on ideology. They move on economics, infrastructure, and human labor. Ignore that balance, and the entire system suffers. We will continue to track this story closely because the future of the American supply chain may depend on how it's resolved. You are watching Civonix, Clear News, Real America.